Welcome. For today's activity, we are going to create a little calculator that will compute the solutions to a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. And then what you'll do is you'll post a link to your calculator in the discussion. So in doing this, we'll learn several features of Desmos, and you can kind of follow along with the video and just make your template as you go. But essentially, what I would like you to do is start by logging in with your Google to Desmos. So you can see here that I've logged in with mine right there. And when you do that, that allows you to save your work. So I recommend that you do that. Now, what I'm doing here is starting with a blank Desmos graph template, and I'm going to start adding features to this. The plus sign on the left side allows us to add items, and what we're going to be adding are some captions and then some calculations. So I'm going to start with a caption that I'd like you to add in. They call it a note, and just put your first name up here. And then on the next line, we're going to add in another note that just says quadratic. Let's see, you got to spell that right. Maybe I can't talk and spell at the same time. So quadratic formula calculator. And then I'm going to add one more note explaining to the user that they're just going to change the values of A, B, and C in that standard form of the quadratic equation. And then our calculator will compute the solutions for them using the quadratic formula. So our last note will be enter the values of A, B, and C below. Got to use some proper grammar here, I guess. Okay, so we're going to enter the values of A, B, and C below. And then let's go ahead and do that. And let's just put a default in here. I'm going to say A equals 1, B equals 5, and C equals 6. And I happen to know the solutions are -2 and -3 for that one. So those are the values that the user can change. They can either change them with the slider or they can just type in new values there. Everything below this line, I do not want the user to mess with because we're going to put the calculations in below. So I'm going to write them another note saying, please don't mess around with the stuff below. Solutions will display below. Do not edit anything below this line. So hopefully they'll heed that warning so they don't mess up our calculations. So once we know what A, B, and C are, we can have the computer use the quadratic formula to find our two solutions. Now remember, there are either two solutions, one solution, or no solutions. And our calculation can handle that. So if there are two solutions, we'll find them by using the quadratic formula. So for the first solution, I'm going to label that x sub 1. And if I just type x1, Desmos knows to make that 1 a subscript. So that variable is going to store the value of the first solution. There are two solutions because remember, in that formula, there's a plus sign and a minus sign that we alternate. Now, the formula is a fraction, so I like to start off by just making my fraction before I type in the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to put b divided by. That sets up a little fraction for me, and then I can use my cursor to go up and type out the rest of the formula. So remember, the formula is -b plus, we'll do plus for this one, the square root. You can either find square root in your keyboard here, right here, or you can type SQRT if you're on a computer. So there's the square root. And remember, it's b squared minus 4 times a times c, and you can just type 4ac, and Desmos knows you mean multiplication. The denominator is 2a, And as soon as I do that, look, my first solution pops up there. So there's that -2 I mentioned. The second solution is basically the same, except we're going to change that to a minus sign. So I'm going to call that x sub 2. I just type x2 and it makes the subscript. I hit equals, I make my fraction, and then I go back and edit this thing. So that's -b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And then on the denominator, I put 2a. And notice now I have that second solution, which is -3. So that's pretty cool. We've made our calculator, right? Now what I like to do is add a graph, add a picture to this so that the user can see what they found, all right? And for that, I'm going to make a little folder down here that'll store all my graphing items. So when you go back up to add item, you select folder, and then I'm just going to put graph here. Oops, got to spell that correctly. And beneath this, I will start adding the features of the graph. The first thing I want to graph is the actual parabola. So I'm just going to put f of x equals, and then remember the coefficients we've provided above in variables a, b, and c. So I'll just type out that ax squared, that standard form, plus bx plus c. And now you can see that the parabola has shown up. I like my parabola, that my functions to be blue, so I'm going to hit the little gear up at the top there, and I'm going to change this to a blue parabola. And I'll hit done there. So this gear is how you edit the features of your items in the graph. Okay. I also want those solutions to show up. And remember, those solutions are the x-coordinates of the intercepts. So I want the entire point to show up. So the first point I'm going to plot is x1, comma 0. And that purple dot shows up there. I want that dot to be red. And I'm going to make it a little bigger. The way you make it bigger is just adjust this number here. I'm going to put like a 14 there. See how it made my dot a little bigger? Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to hit done. And then I'm going to plot the second intercept, which is x2, comma 0. And again, I want that one to also be red. And I'm going to make that a little bigger so I can see it. All right. And let's also add the label to those so it'll show the coordinates of those 2 points there. And right now, when you close your folder, it doesn't collect those into the category. What you have to do is grab the gray part of each field and drag it over so that line shows up. So that shows you that now it's placed in the folder. So I grab them and drag them. And then when I close this up, it's collected into that folder and you can't see it. If you want to open the folder, you click the down arrow and you can see the parts of the folder. Okay, so essentially that's your assignment. Remember, you can adjust the window if you want. You can either use your zooming features or you can choose the wrench here and adjust more fine details of your grid. Like I like to show the arrows, so I choose that. And I don't need to go all the way over to 6. Let's just send this to 2 so we can kind of see the parabola a little better, things like that. And the adjustments you make for that depend on the coefficients in your formula for your parabola. All right, let me summarize because I said a lot of stuff. And I'll type this out in the instructions as well. When you set up your graph, we want you to put your first name in the first field, the title, Quadratic Formula Calculator, in the second field, and then in the third field, the instructions for entering the values. Then you'll have your 3 values for your variables, A, B, and C. Below that, put a little note letting the user know that they're not supposed to change anything below and that the solutions will show up. Enter your formulas for x1 and x2 so the solutions show up here. And then make a graph folder with the features that we've shown in the video here. So I want to graph the function, put it in blue, and then our 2 solutions, please graph those in red. And then increase the size of the dots a little bit just so we can see them. Once you've done that, you can, and if you've logged in with your Google, you can save this so that you have a copy of it. So I'm going to call it Discussion Quadratic Formula. Just so I remember, what it is, what I use this particular graph for. And then I'll hit save. And if you ever want to retrieve that, you just hit the three little bars over here and it shows all the formulas that you've saved in your account for Desmos. Once you've done all that and it's looking good, then what we'll have you post in the discussion is a link to your worksheet here. So instead of taking a screenshot that is static, go ahead and just post a link, and then we can go in and change the values of A, B, and C and make sure it works. So the way you do that is you click the little share graph arrow here next to your login name, and you can copy the link and paste it. You could probably embed it right in your discussion too. I think I'll try that in my post, and if that works, then I'll recommend that you do that just so that people can see it, but at least copy and paste the link in. Either way, we'll be able to access your work. So remember, for our discussions, your initial post is 6 points, and then your replies to 2 of your classmates are each worth 2 points. Please, before you reply to them, click on their link, test it out, make sure it works. If they've made any errors, give them recommendations on how to fix it. And if everything's looking good, say that you used it to solve your equation and the solutions came out right. I think that's enough for the video. If you have other questions, you can email or post them in the forum. Take care.